introduce ourselves, and then Tara introduces you, and you guys have a lovely chat, and we'll come back at the end of the 30 minutes to be like, it was a lovely interview, and we'll round everybody out. Okay?
Okay.
All righty.
All right, so we'll see you in about 30 minutes, ladies.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Woman's Cave. Oh, wow, we're doing it together.
Yes, we are. Nice. It's so exciting.
I think it's because it's sunshiny and it's warm Vegas weather. That's
probably
why.
Still on book tour, you guys.
Hence why there's no camera and you can't see our cute faces.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But anyway, we're not here to be narcissistic. I'm Winona.
And I'm Jade, and we are the co-founders and co-authors the And I Thought Ladies and the And I Thought series. And I thought divorce was bad, and I thought being grown up was easy, and I thought I could juggle it all, and I thought I did my journey alone. All of them are available on our personal and our website, andwethought.com or amazon.com and barnesandnoble.com.
And since Jade never seems to like to mention my two favorite things, that we have a CD out with lovely Tara Woods-Turner on it. Yay. She did a great job, by the way. And a new book. Yep, doing a new book. Anyway, not interesting about us, so we are going to hand this over to the host of Books and Company. Yes, people, I actually got the title of the show correct.
Yay, we're all excited.
And the lovely Tara Woods-Turner. We graciously die out.
Thank you, Jade and Winona, for that lovely introduction, as always. Yes, welcome to Books and Company, where we talk about great books with, the great people who read and write them. And today we are really, really lucky to have author Ember Rain Winters with us this morning. Hello, Ember. How are you today? Say good morning to our lovely readers and listeners and viewers.
Good morning.
Oh, I like that. You sound chipper. You sound you actually sound like a Cali girl there. Where are you in California?
Bakersfield.
Nice. Ember is the author of the Gone series, a young adult dystopian.
Oh, it's Bourne.
I'm sorry?
It's Bourne, the Bourne series.
What did I say?
Gone.
Okay, let's not be gone. Let's be born. What am I thinking? Gone Girl? I really have no explanation for that. But yes, the Bourne series, young adult dystopian fiction. And, oh gosh, now I'm paranoid. I want to say a benevolent deception.
No, it's Beautiful Delusions.
Beautiful Delusion. Benevolent Deception was Aiden Bailey, two shows ago. So you know what? Let's just pretend that I know what I'm talking about this morning. I've got books on the brain. So that went smoothly. But let's get into the actual meat of your books. Let's talk about the Bourne series. Young adult dystopian, one of my favorite budding genres. I think, like, everyone else on the planet, I was, really into the Hunger Games. Same genre, same category, but completely different feeling. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this series, set up the Bourne series for us?
The Bourne series, it starts after a series of wars on immigration. So it was like the government decided to crack down on immigration, on illegal immigration, and then the illegal immigrants rose up against the government. And after a series of wars, they end up with a military, basically a militaristic government. So, but the government, he calls himself a president, but he's really a dictator. And so we go 16 years later, after he already takes over, the country is just completely, run down. He's basically like destroyed the country, and you come to Alexa, a 16-year-old girl who she doesn't realize that her dad was a big part of the immigration wars, and he ends up getting he ends up getting arrested for treason, and she has to go find her mom, who she didn't even know was alive in California, and she's in Texas.
Wow. So we've got, a swirling, sort of swirling social issues around immigration, a leader who is not necessarily completely backed, at least in the hearts of the people. There's no way that this could actually happen in this country, could it?
Well,
That just sounds so far-fetched.
oh yeah, no, but the funny thing is that I wrote it about 3 years ago, before all of the drama with everything that's been going on with the election and everything, before Donald Trump ever decided to run for president. I wrote it years ago. And so it's like, I've had some reviewers say, oh, it sounds like, a little too Donald Trump-esque, and so it's like, I'm like, no, actually I wrote it a long time before he ever even came into office. It was one of those social issues that I thought needed to be discussed.
Yes, because it definitely was something that it's something that has been brewing, on the political horizon. But at the same time, it must be extremely interesting. I won't quite say gratifying, but it must be extremely interesting to see how the issues in the Bourne series are reflective of what's going on, today in America, as far as immigration issues and immigration reform is concerned.
Absolutely, because when I wrote it, it wasn't one of the big issues, but living in California, I see it a lot more than some, so like on the West Coast, when we're so close to, two different borders, you see it a lot more than people maybe see it in the Midwest, or so it wasn't one of our main issues, but to see it like just snowball into this huge issue after, it is kind of interesting to think, well, I did, I started thinking throughout the election, I'm like, dang, this is possible.
Exactly. And, and like you said, you started writing this book, before the election, but what better, what better political climate in which to release the books, or have the books, sort of hit the scene. And it's no coincidence, the fact that you're writing about the subject matter, because you, in fact, studied political science.
I did. I studied political science and philosophy. I was huge into. I wanted to be physics when I was young,
Yes.
but life happened, and I was like, I don't know if I can, do that.
Well, I have to help you sort of, toot your own horn, because I'm also a political science major. I got my bachelor's degree in political science and international studies and economics. So, of course, I was really thrilled when I read that in your author bio. Now, I personally think that sort of, background in political science, it tends to make me, I won't say it makes me skeptical, but it definitely gives me, reasons to look through a different lens, as far as things that we're told, things that, are reflected in the media. Interestingly, that also informs my writing. I understand that, necessarily there are going to be different perspectives and different sides to every coin, which, as a political science scholar, you're also probably are very much aware of that. Has that informed your writing? Does that help you approach your writing in a different way?
I think it does. I think when I started writing the Bourne series, my background, because I was also international relations and international
Love it.
major, so I really do think, because it does make you think of things differently. I think everyone should have at least a little background in political science. You know what I mean? Like, it helps so much with, being informed and things like that. And I think, using my own background when in my writing, it helps. I think it makes the writing a little bit better.
I do. I really do think it does. And, similarly with, with political studies and especially history, which, as you know, they go hand in hand, we definitely, you develop a sense of cause and effect that's not necessarily rooted in what we see now. We know that everything that's going on today, on the world stage or sociopolitically, it had its roots in something, that happened 10 years ago or 50 years ago or even 100 years ago. And again, bringing that back to your writing, I think that is something that definitely helps when it comes to creating backstory. And that's something that I did notice in your writing is there's a solid sense that you as a writer, you've taken the time to think this through. The book opens, but clearly that's not where your narrative starts. So how do you go about that process, making sure that the novel is rooted in a strong sense of having developed, a good backstory?
That's a tough one. When I wrote it, I just wrote it. Like, the characters talk. You know what I mean? It's like the characters tell me where things go. So it's like but I knew the backstory before I ever, started writing. So it's like I just kind of tried to sprinkle it in there as much as I could without like just info dumping everything.
Exactly, right. It does. It feels organic. And I think that's one thing that readers definitely will appreciate is there is no sense of, okay, I need a chapter or half a chapter, like you said, the infamous info dump where I just, okay, here's what's been going on now. Let's get to the story. It doesn't work like that. The story has to feel organic. Things have to happen in what best, I guess, could be described as real time. Of course it's not, but as a skilled writer, it's your job to make it feel organic, like it's in real time. So well done on that front. How difficult is that as a writer, especially when you're writing about dystopian fiction? When you're writing about what could be or what will be, but it still has to have a semblance of what is to help readers connect. Was that a challenge for you?
It was a little bit of a challenge. I actually ended up rewriting the entire book over again after I wrote it the first time. It was first person present tense, and I was like, it wasn't flowing right, so I ended up rewriting the whole thing. And it's like, yeah, I did have an infamous info dump in the first version, and I had to go through and just try to. It's really hard, but I guess it worked.
It worked. It seems to have worked quite well.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that readers are taking note of is your pacing. You seem to be able to keep a steady pace going. Now, technically, do you do this with storyboards, or is it a result of what you described as letting your characters speak to you?
It's letting the characters speak to me. I don't storyboard anything. I write by the seat of my just comes. So yeah, no. I'm really glad to hear the pacing's good, because it is kind of a short read, only about 190 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of action and stuff that goes into like the whole thing. So yeah.
Okay, so in addition to some of the elements that we've already covered as far as what's present in the series, did you find it difficult, or was it relatively easy to incorporate elements into the story that young adults could relate to, as far as relationships with family, relationships with friends, identity? That's always an issue with your young adult demographic. How did you weave that into the larger narrative of, you know, intrigue and politics and you know, the whole dystopian world that you set up? How did you weave the more basic human elements into the story that young adults are dealing with today?
It was, I'm pretty much a big kid still. I could kind of relate to the whole dynamic a little bit. I have an 18-year-old brother, so I know how, you know, teenagers interact with, you know, adults, and from what the thing with Alexa, I just wanted her to be real. You know what I mean? And Alexa, I thought about the dynamic of her mother, because she knows her mother. Her mother took off to go lead the resistance and left her with her dad with her whole life. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wanted to think about how would a teenager feel if their parents left them, you know, when they were born, and took off to go, you know, help other people, but never really, you know, cared about them. You know what I mean? So like, I had to think about how I would feel. I put myself into the position. If I had been in this situation, how would I feel about, you know, 16-year-old girl and finding out that, yeah, your mom died, left. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. The conflict, the emotional conflict.
Yeah.
And again, that's, you know, just to touch on the main character, I hesitate to say her name because I have an Amazon Echo, and as you know, and if I say your main character's first name, my Echo that's also her name, and she's going to ask me what I want. What do you want now? It's so responsive. It's crazy. But yes, and this is something else that I particularly liked about the character is I think there's a tendency in young adult fiction, especially with suspense thriller, dystopian young adult fiction, is you get the feeling that the main character is basically an adult in young adult clothing. Like some authors are just trying to reach out to a certain demographic, but they don't know how to write in a young adult voice. And the result is that the main characters really do seem to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's really the best reflection on the genre. But your main character is very much, you know, a teenager, a young adult, and she is figuring it out as she goes. And I think that makes it very authentic.
Well, thank you.
So, so let's talk about your well, I want to call it romantic suspense.
Yeah.
But it's heavy on the suspense, not as heavy on the romance, although it's certainly I mean well, I'll let you describe it, because I think it's more suspense with some romance than romantic suspense. So let's talk about that, because that's a complete 180 from the Bourne series. So tell me how you came to write. Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay. Well. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Tell us a little bit about the book, and then we'll get into, you know, how you came up with this story based on what you've been writing with the Bourne series.
What beautiful. It's a romantic suspense, and I mainly, I think what makes it a romantic suspense is that it's two characters, the central couple. You know what I mean? It's how they interact, even all of the stuff that they're going through. Kate, she was a victim of domestic violence, and her attacker comes back 10 years later, and he's harassing her, and then she ends up, the beginning of the book, she ends up driving her truck into a ditch because she saw him on the road. PTSD flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And so then everybody thinks she's in a coma. Everybody thinks she tried to commit suicide, which she didn't. She can't get anybody to listen to her, so then she ends up having to go to therapy. Well, she ends up in therapy, and her doctor ends up being a childhood friend who did her wrong. and
Mhm.
was her best friend when she was a child. And he's ex-military, he's a veteran, and he's been trying to help people with PTSD, just like he had, and so many of his friends had when he was in the military.
Mhm.
And so they end up, she's mad at him at first, she's totally just doesn't even want anything to do with him at first, but then as it goes on, as she's getting, different, like, hold on, I lost my train of thought. as she's getting harassed by her ex, there's all these other, circumstances that end up just like nearly breaking. Like, she's having to deal with so much in such a short time, and then dealing with this new relationship with Griffin, and it's, but tries to be strong, and
Well, I think it's pretty fascinating that you were able to write a thriller or a romantic suspense with so many layers. It's not so much that there's the heroine, there's the hero, and there's a source of conflict, right? What we're used to. It's not quite that simple. For example, she's got children.
Yes.
She has children, and her dynamic or her relationship with with her children is necessarily affected by everything she's going through, because she's a great mom, but she's got all of this on her shoulders to boot. So how are you able to come up with, and I think the sad part is not so much that there's so many layers of conflict, but that when it comes to abuse and domestic violence, that's the reality. That's not fiction. That's actually the reality for a lot of domestic and violence victims. So how are you able to weave all of those elements into this story and still not lose the tension or the sense of dramatic tension?
Well, the short answer is that I wrote based off my own experience. So it's like, yeah, I've been through similar things. Some of the flashbacks that Kaylee has are versions of some things of, I mean, they're tweaked a bit, but they're based on real events.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like therapeutic for me to be able to tell that story. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to tell that story, I mean, it's mostly fiction. It's just a few of the flashbacks are, based on things that have happened to me. But the reason why I wanted to tell the story is because you see so many other stories out there where the male character was in war and he has PTSD.
Yes.
You don't see hardly any where the heroine has PTSD.
Exactly.
And with all of the, the flashbacks, everything else that war heroes, I'm completely and totally for veterans. I love veterans. I thank them for their service, but there are not enough heroines out there that make it so men who have been going through, know that there is someone else out there that's going through it too. They're not alone. That was one of the main things why I felt I needed to write.
And thank you for that answer, and thank you for finding not only the strength but the bravery, to share part of your own journey and personal experience, with your readers, and being able to write in such a compelling genre. That's only going to help spread, the message that, domestic violence, it's not as cut and dry as what we see on television, or the thing, we know on a certain level that it's wrong, that domestic violence victims need our support. But I think a book like this also sheds light on the fact that even when the abuse technically ends, that the victims, they are struggling with huge, monumental issues of trauma. The psychological devastation and the trauma don't end when the physical abuse ends. And I think that's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, one thing you mentioned, I'm glad you did. I was going to speak on this, was a lot of people in the book, they believe that she tried to kill herself, and that, you know, that what the story she's telling them about still being pursued, you know, by her abuser is more or less convenient, I guess I would say. And again, that's something that a lot of domestic violence sufferers, male and female, have to contend with, is not being believed, not having their story taken as fact. Was that on your mind when you went in that particular direction in the book?
It was because so many people, like, they don't understand what really is going on with PTSD. They don't understand that there are many different things like anxiety and depression and a lot of other things go wrong with PTSD, and they start to think you just need to get over it. Like, it's been 10 years, you need to get over it. And it's not that simple. And you can't really understand that unless you have it. You know what I mean? Or unless you're a professional, like a psychologist or something. You know what I mean? Like, eventually it gets to the point where you feel like you're completely alone, nobody understands you. You know what I mean? And so
Exactly.
I wrote this for the women that suffer from it, but I also wrote it for the families of the women that suffer from it.
Yes.
Let them see that it's not as simple, cut and dry as they think. It's not about, you know, getting over it, because they wouldn't tell a war hero to get over it.
Yes, exactly. And again, there's a sense, you know, even when it's not necessarily intentional, but I feel like society is conditioned to look at, you know, why someone is suffering before we as a society make the decision to give that person support, you know, unconditional support. And again, that's one of the issues we face when we talk about domestic violence. Whereas someone who has suffered trauma as a result of service to their country, whether it's in the military or, you know, on the police force, there's a sense that they deserve, even though I feel like that they don't always get the support that they actually need and deserve. Our mental health services absolutely need to be improved, but there is the sense that they deserve our, you know, unconditional support, whereas domestic violence sufferers often are relegated to the shadows. As you said, we don't even always associate what they're going through with PTSD. We've almost reserved that label for veterans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you mentioned that it was therapeutic for you to write the story, and I hope and pray that you're in a good place. But for those out there who may be, you know, listening or viewing this, who may still be dealing with it, what would you say to them as far as giving them, you know, a sense of hope, and to let them know that they're not alone?
Oh wow. It was therapeutic. I still do suffer from it. You know what I mean? It's an ongoing thing. I don't think it's ever gonna fully go away. My sister actually suffers from it too, or my sister-in-law, and she's been going to therapy for a long time, and it's a lot different when you're. I'm trying to think, like, just.
So it sounds like, you know, reaching out for help, whether it's, you know, therapeutic interventions or, you know, reaching out to family and friends. It seems like that's definitely the first step in coming to terms with the fact that, you know, this is too big to carry alone.
It is definitely too big to carry alone. And I think the first step would probably be explaining explaining how you feel to family and, you know, therapy, things like that. Explain to your family and your friends how it makes you feel when, you know, when they don't understand, you know what I mean? Or explain to them. I know it's hard. It's really super hard because I've dealt with it. My family still doesn't completely understand, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's
So,
rough.
yes. So writing about this, as, you know, like you said, has been very helpful. Um, so tell us let's go back a little and tell us how you became involved in creative writing, you know, to begin with. Are you one of those authors who can barely remember when you first picked up a pen? You've just always been a writer? Or is this something that developed later in life?
Actually, when I was little, like I just recently found a stack of books from second grade that my teacher had like bound that we wrote. You know what I mean? And I remembered writing all through my childhood, but like once I got to like adulthood, I didn't write as much as I had. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought of, you know, the story. I wrote a story and then I'd be like, oh well, I don't think that's fair. I don't think anybody would read that, so I went away. But then once I got to the Bourne series, like, okay, this is an idea. This is, you know, I think this will be good. And I sat down and
So, and a lot of us are writers, you know, almost all of us write, but when you publish, you make that leap from writer to author. And tell us a little bit about that feeling. I mean, it's a very powerful feeling. What was it like for you when you finally hit publish?
it was a little anticlimactic. I rushed into publishing before I really got into like researching what to do when you publish. When I published the Born to Resist,
Mm-hmm.
I just published it one night. I was just like, okay, this is done. You know what I mean? It's as good as it's gonna get. And I just hit publish, and you know, it was cool seeing, you know, my book cover on Amazon. You know, it was awesome seeing it, but it was just like it was kind of like one of those like I'm still here in my living room, and you know,
The world didn't stop spinning.
yeah, exactly.
Now, you've also expressed interest in writing some fantasy. So can we expect some epic fantasy from you in the future, the near future?
Probably not the near future. Probably I have the Beautiful Delusions, the Pride and Honor 4 books. So I've written 2 of them so far. But after I finish, because the Bourne series isn't finished either. So
Mm-hmm.
once I finish off the Bourne series and the Pride and Honor, think I've got some ideas floating around in my head. The characters just have, you know, came out and screamed at me to write it now. So.
So, so why don't you tell us a little bit about now? If let's say, you know, going forward, let's say I won't say 5 years because that's like a lifetime. You know, we move at such a fast pace. Looking forward 5 years is almost impossible. But let's say a year or 2 from now, where would you like to be as far as a writer? As far as what body of work, you know, would you like to have established?
A year from now, I would probably like to have the Bourne series. The Bourne series has 1 more book in it.
Mm-hmm.
That one I'd like to have completed. And then I'd probably like to be closer to done with the Pride and Honor series. I've got a couple ideas for where it's going to go from here, and because each book in the Pride and Honor series is a different character, a different couple. So it's
Right.
like
Oh, I see.
Haley and Griffin are the first, and then, you know, it'll go through all the guys from a G security, and so I mean it'll go through. So it's like I have some ideas. I've been actually writing flash fiction on my website
Mm-hmm.
to that's the backstory for Marcy and Mac, and I'm gonna do a little ebook for my subscribers, for my email subscribers, for that. so they know what, because there's a little intrigue about Marcy and Mac in the first book and the second.
Mhm.
So I go ahead.
So your work is similar, at least in scope and genre, to author Aislinn Kearns, who we actually have had on the show. And coincidentally, you both are in one of the same writers groups.
We are.
Author groups on Goodreads. Would you consider doing a box set or some other similar collaboration?
Yeah, if Aslan wanted to do it.
Okay, well, I'm officially proposing that you guys put your heads together, because I think that would be a very a very organic combination with your writing style and genre and hers. Speaking of writers groups, and then we're gonna get ready to wrap up here. I want to get some information from you about where we can find you and your books. But tell us what it's like being a part, of the writing community, insofar as getting that, feedback, and not just technical feedback, but just, good old fashioned, emotional support. What has that experience been like for you as a writer?
It's been amazing. Like, I didn't even start getting active on Goodreads till November, and ever since then, it's been amazing. Like, I love the ladies' romance. Annie thing, like, we've become like good friends over Goodreads, and yeah, it's there. Everyone's super helpful. I'm relatively new, so like anytime I have a question, or it's very, very supportive, and I'm so lucky that I decided to get into the and start being active. And
yes, those I happen to know those ladies are quite amazing. Very forward thinking, very hands-on, very supportive. Annie Arcane, Nicole Locker, Jane, some of the other wonderful ladies there. So, and it is important because writing is such a solitary pursuit that I think, without other authors to reach out to, you can very much kind of get stuck in your own head.
oh yeah, absolutely.
So Ember, why don't you tell us more about how we can find your books, your series? Tell us what platforms you're available on, and how readers can reach out to you.
I'm exclusive to Amazon with all 3 of my books, so it'll be available on Kindle Unlimited for free also. I'm on Facebook. Go to author Ember Rain Winters on Facebook. Twitter is at Ember_Winters, and then my blog is Ember Rain Winters Book Blog at wordpress.com.
Okay, and also Goodreads. You're available on Goodreads as well.
Yes.
So is your blog part of your website? Is it a separate website, or is it?
Oh, it's the same website. It's
Okay.
That's where I do all my flash fiction. I write reviews sometimes and just show, like, I think there's a synopsis for the Bourne series and for Beautiful Delusions. I'll have to check if the blurb for Beautiful Delusions is on there.
Okay, and of course your readers will also be able to sign up for your mailing list there, I'm assuming. So they'll get advance notice of all your new releases.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I planned on being one of those readers, Ember.
Yeah.
I can't believe that, like, you have such great books out. I have, like,
It's such
new
a great
books to read.
It's such a great range of books. We totally appreciate you being on Books and Company. Well, and / our show, the Anti-Thought.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely. As always, the 30 minutes flies so fast. And Tara, amazing job, by the way, on the wrap up.
Yes, and where can they find
we're
you?
still recording, so I'm sorry about that.
And where can they find you?
Oh, I am available my book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, on iTunes, best-selling parenting guide, Beyond Good Manners, How to Raise a Sophisticated Child. Also available on my website, www.taraWoodsTurner.com. And all of my social media links are there, so stop by and just say hello, leave a thought, leave a message, drop a hello. Always happy to hear from you guys. And yeah, that's it. That's where I'm living. So
I'm gonna tell you, she has so many platforms that she's on. That
Yes.
it's always like when she does the list, I was like, wait, is that the last one? No, she has one more, right?
It's so wonderful, and thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Books and Such. I am Jade.
Books and Company, and
Yep.
yes, what Jade messed it up. not
Yes,
me.
because you always say it wrong, and now it's just stuck in my head. Anyway, I am Jade.
And I am Winona, and we are part of the And I Thought Ladies. And we're going to wrap it up with our favorite saying, that wisdom is all around you.
If you're open to accepting it and finding it.
So peace and love. Bye-bye, you guys.